Okay, and welcome everybody. We're glad you're here. We're looking right now at the background image from the Bing desktop of the Windows system. What we're going to be discussing is a technique that you can use to add a beginning to your video. So if you are creating a video to show something, or a video to be educational, or a video to describe something, what I'm going to show you is a technique that you can use. This is a technique that you need Camtasia in order to do it. But what it does, it allows you, for example, if your main video is 60 minutes long, you can create a 1 or 2 minute introduction to your video that I think makes your video more cool. It makes it more interesting. It helps people to be happy to be watching your video. But what I'm describing here is not something that you have to have. If you have your video and you're happy with it, you don't have to create this introduction. And what I'm discussing here in this video is a way for you to make that introduction. And as you can see, this introduction might be 1 or 2 minutes long, but it will take me 20 or 30 minutes to describe how to do it. And that's because it takes a while to describe how to do something, even though when you're done and you've created it, it only lasts for a minute or two. So now we're going to change this and get ourselves a different item to look at on the screen. All right, and I have pulled up here on the screen an image for you to see, and you can see that this image is a collection of images, and it's inside of a 3D drawing program, because this way of moving around inside of a image that you're looking at on your TV set, your monitor, that is something that is done with a 3D drawing program. You can't do this with just two-dimensional editing programs. And this technique that I'm going to show you for creating the introduction to your video will need for you to have the ability to use a 3D drawing program. I think what I'm going to show you is present in many different 3D drawing programs, and I'll show you the one that I'm using. All right, this program is SketchUp Pro, a 3D drawing program. The company that owns it is Trimble. So in order for you to do exactly what I'm doing, you would need to own this program. So there's that. Now, another thing to mention, I have multiple scientific degrees, and most of what I talk about is related to science. And so I don't think what I'm describing to you can really be described just with words. I think it would become so confusing that you wouldn't understand it. So I'm going to use a specific example to let you see what I'm talking about. And the example I will use is an example coming from science, because that's what I do. And let's say you have all right, I'm going to be talking about a structure, a drone. It's a flying device. It has propellers on it. It flies up in the air, and it has wings on it. From a scale viewpoint, these little mannequin people are the size of a human being. So I'm going to talk about a drone. Let me back this up. I'm going to make a video. It'll be a 60 to 90 minute video on this topic. And now I'm going to create my introduction to my video. And so my video will start here and we'll go all the way down to there. And by the time that we get down to here, I will have been talking for 90 minutes or so on my video about this drone. And the first thing I'm going to do with my video, my educational video on this drone, is to create this introduction that I'm telling you about. And the way this introduction works, the concept of this introduction is to have a way, using these 3D drawing programs, to show people the entirety of what you're going to talk about as the beginning of your video. So in the next 40 seconds, I'll go over all of this real fast. And that will let people know what I'm going to talk about for the big video. And this is what I'm showing you. All right, and so we wanted to give you a demo. This entire lecture, particularly this is a brand new type of a drone that nobody has. So you're going to be trying to convince scientific people, engineers, that this actually is possible. And so this is easily a 60-minute lecture. It could easily be 3 or 4 hours if they're going to really fight with you about it. But I can just show you, for an example, I'm not going to look at the clock, but let's say we're making my intro for my lecture on this drone. And I would say, well, welcome to everybody. I'm glad you're here. This is Dr. Gray speaking. We're going to talk about a drone. This is the drone. That's what it looks like. In our lecture, we'll show you what it looks like and its little legs that it sits on. And when it's flying, it folds its little legs up so that they're not sticking out anymore. We put it against a backdrop of some mountains. We'll discuss all of that. We, of course, will give you this little statement here that says, don't make something that's dangerous if you don't know how to. The next thing is to show how is it that the propellers are spun around, and these are the hydraulic motors that do that. And I actually took the specifications. This is from the web page of these motors and created a 3-dimensional motor equivalent of it. This is the jet engine to be the prime mover. You put jet fuel into this and it will turn these pumps. You can see that I've drawn the jet with these pumps on it, and they get the propellers to spin. The issue of the propellers is they have to be strong enough to raise up the drone, and so we'll talk about propellers and we'll use propeller calculation programs to show what the curves are for the propellers. Of interest, the altitude, as you want your drone to go up in the air, as the altitude gets higher, the air gets thinner. So you have to establish that your propeller is good enough to get the drone in the air at sea level, but you also have to show that the propeller is good enough to work to get the drone to go up in the air at 9,000 feet of altitude. And this is an official European Aviation Safety Agency where they sent in the specification for the motor. So what we're saying about that jet engine, we can establish by proof. And here are some calculations showing the propeller and the fuel and the density and all these demonstration of numbers that demonstrate to us that the drone is feasible. And finally, you know, it goes up in the air. It goes up in the air with its nose pointed up in the air, and it's much more efficient flying for this drone if it flies along with itself in a horizontal configuration. And so we have a demonstration that this drone has enough power to fly horizontally. And so there you go. And I don't know how long that took. That was 3 minutes, but that would be the introductory document, or introductory 3 or 4 minutes that I would stick onto the front of my lecture about this drone. And to me, what's interesting about this introduction, I think there's essentially 3 groups of people. There's a group of people who would say, oh no, that's what this is all about? I don't care about this at all. I don't want to watch this. And you know, I want people to watch my videos, but I don't want people watching my videos that don't want to watch it. So if I zip through it like this, and this guy or this lady is like, I just don't want to watch it, well, okay. There's another group of people, I think, who would say, oh, this is exactly what I wanted to hear. I had a lot of questions about this drone, and he's going to establish that it's feasible and how it works. And then, of course, I think there may be a third group of people that were like, wait. I wanted to understand how these pumps got on that jet engine. And he went right by it. I had just begun to study it, and suddenly he's down here talking about something else. And boy, I wish I could have seen that a little more closely. And of course, you're kind of using it like a hook or a trailer or a tease. And it's like, because they're going to realize, oh, well, that's okay, because he is going to go over this in more detail and go back into that picture and let me look at it more carefully. Same thing with, well, here, for example, this, where they're going, I just don't know if I believe this guy. I don't know if he did his calculations correct. I can't add and subtract this fast. I wish I'd been able to see that for a little while longer. But then they realize, oh, yeah, he's going to do all that in his real lecture. And so you have that third group of people that have a tease, that have their mind like, oh, I want to watch this video. So, all right. And so you say, okay, well, maybe I do want to make an intro like this, because you can tell, you can have people looking at your entire lecture, or you can go all the way down to a very magnified view of a tiny little part of whatever it is you're talking about. There you can see inside of this flying machine is that jet engine. And the question becomes, okay, how did he do this? Now, all I can show you is how you do this in SketchUp. But it's my feeling that all of the 3D drawing programs are the same with respect to this capability. So if you see it demonstrated to you by me in SketchUp, you're going to be able to see it in any of the 3D drawing programs. So I want to go to a slightly different view of this. All right, I think you can see this is pretty much the same imagery that I used before, except inside of the drawing program, the 3D drawing program, I have this template here, and it has lines on it. And these lines, one of the features of the SketchUp program on a line structure, like right there, if you double click on that line, it creates a guide. And so these guides are here, a set of horizontal guides and a set of vertical guides, and they allow you to take these images and place them at the corners where these two guidelines cross. And so that lets you have a view of your set of images that looks pretty. And you will notice, for example, you know, this stuff is pretty simple here, but on some of these I began to expand how big it is. Like here, I wanted to really demonstrate that jet engine inside of the fuselage of this drone. And so this, you can see that this is that big and this is that big, but you can expand it. And this is, okay, so now this is a 3D drawing file. This is an image file, a rendering. This is a rendering. You see how pretty it is. So this is a rendering from Keyshot, a rendering program. This is Keyshot. This is, you can see the three-dimensional letters. Well, you know, maybe this might be an image, but this was typing from SketchUp. That's from SketchUp. This here is a screen capture from the web page of Parker Hannifin. So I took the web page where they show what their pump and motor look like, and I used that to show that I had duplicated the motor, so that when I took the motor and put the motor in this support structure to hold up, if somebody wanted to argue, well, that's not what that looks like, I say, yes, it is. Here it is right here. And so that's a web page. That's their web page. These are a calculation program. You obtain this program, and then you put your numbers into it, and then you tell it to calculate, and it generates results, which you can then pull off with your screen capture. These are all screen captures. This, I think, is, yeah, you see the three-dimensional letters. So these are three-dimensional structures created in SketchUp. And this is actually a document that I created in a graphics program called, I use CorelDRAW. And you create this in your drawing program, your graphics. It's not for creating digital pictures, it's for creating digital graphic material like this, like an ad for the newspaper. But then you can save it as a PNG file, and then it becomes an image file. And if you save it as an image file, then you can bring it into SketchUp. And so that's where all this came from, and that's how I got it all lined up like that. And then you can subtract out the guidelines to create the image file that I used as a sample to create that introduction. And we have a different one of these. This is so big, you know, I'll have to look. I think that this is, okay, you can see that this file that I've been using is 293 megabytes. And what happens is, as these files as this entire file gets larger and larger, the computer and the graphics card and the computer program begin to have a little trouble dealing with something that large. So as I show you how to create one of these, I'm going to use a version that's smaller because it's easier to work with. All right, and you can see here that we have, it's a smaller one. It is templates but no guides, number V95. And you can see the big one that we made the real demo with was 293 megabytes, and this little one here, V95 with no guides, is 183 megabytes. And somewhere around 183, that's getting close to as big as the SketchUp program can work with quickly and easily. You can make one as big as you want, but it gets unwieldy. And so I brought it down to the smaller one. And I may, okay, so you saw this one. No guide, okay. And one thing you can do if you really want to see how this might look is this is a group, so you could hide it. And now you have, oh, here's the little guy. I wanted to show how big the propeller was and the motor. And I think I put on there, yeah, F12 motor. I put a texture file on it. So I wanted to demonstrate, and this is the propeller itself. Now I wanted to show, one of the things that's important is I'm getting ready to show you how you do this. So I thought I would get some image. These are images I drew in Corel Photo Paint. Photo Paint is a drawing program. This is the chicken. This guy, obviously something surprised him. He was never happy that he got involved in this. This guy is clearly irritated. And you can see it's treating them as 2D drawing files. And this one is, I created a robot, a really actual robot that really could work. And I was looking at the feet and realized that that's, to me, is just kind of pretty. It's hard, you know, when you created it yourself, you never know if you think it's pretty because you created it or you think it's pretty because it is pretty. but I thought that was pretty. And I created this for a pop socket. And these down here, I'll get back to these in a minute. I guess I should just quickly show you something where we will open okay, this has no guides. This is the same one. It's V112 with no guides. This is what we're looking at, is the one with no guides, and this is the one with the guides. So let's open that one. All right, and you can see that we've reopened it, but it's got these guidelines in it so that it allows us to place the picture so that everything looks pretty. And one of the things that we can do, and all right, so you can see that these images have their corner placed in the intersections of these guidelines. And a final thing I wanted to mention. Okay, so I'm in the program called CorelDRAW, and I've gone and opened up the place where I have these documents saved as CorelDRAW documents, so I can open that. And since this is a CorelDRAW document, for example, if I wanted to change this, if I thought that that font was just not the right font, then I can change it up to 24. So this is a CorelDRAW document that exists as a CorelDRAW document, but you can also have it, once you've messed around with it, you can have it exported. You can have it exported as a PNG graphics file. So you're working with it right now as a CorelDRAW file that you can edit it, but once you edit it, then and save it as an image file, you can't edit it anymore in CorelDRAW, but you can import it into SketchUp. And so now we're going to talk about a slightly different topic. All right, and what I'm doing here in a sequential fashion is working through a variety of different images that you can bring into your little introduction video. And I worked to create a robot. It didn't have arms on it at the time. I was working on the hips and the legs. But it's a robot that really could exist and would really work. And here are the feet. And you can see here, I've hidden some of the robots, and we're looking now down at their feet. And you can see if I start subtracting even more robots, we're left with this one robot, and we're looking at his feet or her feet. This can be exported into a separate program called Keyshot, which is a rendering program. And so now we're in Keyshot, which is a program, and you can send your SketchUp drawings into Keyshot. And inside of Keyshot, you can ask Keyshot to render your feet and create images. Or you can look at it, and you can see here that we're only on sample 18. So we get up to sample 250. I was kind of working with the colors here and the labels. And you can have this rendering program work on this view to see if you like it, and then you can have it render it out to be an image that it rendered. And you can see that I have a bunch of renders that I've done. And here is some of the renders of the feet. Let's see, extra large. So this is 1 megabyte. That's 23 megabytes. 18 megabytes. And so you get this image. Like I said, to me, that's pretty. That's like almost artistic. But it's an image. And so this image can be pulled into your introduction. It doesn't have much to do with drones, but the point I'm making is you can create pretty images and pull them into your introductory trailer or your teaser file to get people to watch your video. And we have something here that's a feature of Camtasia that is a very nice feature of Camtasia that I've been using. You didn't even know I was doing it. But Camtasia allows you to pause your recording. These files are big enough that they take 2 or 3 minutes to open. And I've been hitting, you see the mouse pointer go off. I've been hitting over here and putting it on pause while I'm waiting for it to open. But one thing that I did, before I get into that, with these renderings, I wanted to show you that while you can, if you want to, get highly technical scientific information. The phrase highly technical scientific just does not pop into my head when I look at that guy or that guy. That guy is looking at me and saying, please stop bothering me. But the other thing you can do in SketchUp or in this topic of making an introduction to your video is you can go and get stuff that's pretty, that's just pretty to look at. This is a little Christmas present jewelry item that I created. It's got rubies in it and a sapphire, pink sapphire, reddish colored reflective. This is platinum at a mirror polish. It's got such a mirror polish that it's reflecting the grass, and it's got diamonds and rubies, and I created a little hand that goes in this box. I had a group of people, they had a chapel that was dilapidated and in disrepair, and they wanted to bring it back up into something pretty and functional and use it as a real chapel. They wanted me to create it in SketchUp so that they could show people what it would look like. They were thinking to maybe help us to get born. They wanted to sell these t-shirts to help refurbish their church. But the point that I'm making here with this is that you can actually put beautiful imagery into this way of presenting your data. It's not limited to just science. That's the point that I'm making here. And the final thing I wanted to look at was one other trick that Camtasia will let you do. All right, and we're going to talk about, again, another nice thing about Camtasia. It does utilize that pause feature again. So we've got our, if this was going to be our little, I can't imagine what this collection would be, the introduction to, but let's get back to science. And you have this image here of the demonstration. These are the word discussions that show from a scientific viewpoint, how this drone that was pointed straight up in the air, it basically adds power to these propellers and backs it down on those, and that will make it turn. And the drawing is showing that as it turns, you lose some upward force. So when it's turning, it'll drop down, and then it'll start going forward, and the wings will start to create lift. It's just a demonstration that it's feasible. And you can look at this. This is clearly the type of imagery that you get in SketchUp. And down here is imagery that you get from having it rendered. And you can be talking along like I'm talking along, and then you go down here saying, we'll take a look at something here, and you hit the pause button, which I'm going to do, except I'm not going to hit the pause button, but pretend that I hit the pause button. And you can see here that I have a library of renders, and one of the places where I did renders was this heavy lift drone stuff. And we can arrange it by size. Okay, so here is the drone transition to level flying. And again, we can try the view. There it is, okay? So this is 334 million bytes, which it's 20,000 pixels, but you can't put, so here we are looking at 334 million bytes, and down in here is SketchUp with that introductory clip that you're making with one of those images. You can't put a 334 megabyte image in your clip. So let's see if I can, we'll just take this and close it. Okay, this cannot be 334 megabytes. This is actually a 20 megabyte version of that 334 megabyte image. But you can, when you're talking, remember, we're zipping through this. We're only going to be talking for a minute or two or three. And we're like talking about this, and we're talking about that as the discussion of how it's going to work. And here's a little image, and I'll take you to see that. And you're talking along. And right when you say this is 20 megabytes, I'm going to take you down here, and we'll take a look at this for a moment. You hit the pause button. So here goes the mouse cursor, and I paused it. And I really am going to pause it for a moment here. And then we go down to the heavy lift drone stuff, and we go to this. Okay, so here, somewhere in here is the 20 megabyte version of this, but this is the 300. And so we take a look at this, and what we've done, all right. And so what we would do in Camtasia was go back over here. There goes the mouse to the corner. So we'll go back over here, and we'll pretend we're going to turn it back on. And so to your viewers are going to have the impression that you were in that little introductory video and you saw that image and you went to look at it. But you're now in a 334 million byte file, which means you can make this as big as you want to make it, and everything is still clear because it's that big. So here is a propeller, here is the motor turning the propeller, here are the little landing struts that have been all curled up on each other, and this is one of them, and this is the next one that's starting to turn itself over a little bit, and you can look at how these arms articulate on the limbs, and you can go and you can see, and here it is, and they're kind of flying away like bye bye, see you later. And here's that jet engine in there. And the reason you have this level of magnification of what you're showing people is because you went into a 334 megabyte image. So now we're going to get, I think if I just close this, now we're back to that. And I'll do one more example of that where, okay, so you're making the drone and you want it to fly around, and you have a drone that's the size of a basketball and it costs $12, and you ask your investors to give you 20 of them because as you work to make it function, you're going to break them. Now you have them with this 3,000-pound drone that has a 40-foot wingspan. Here's our little mannequin guy. See how fuzzy this is? This is a 20 megabyte image file. And what I wanted to make was a device that would hold this drone so it can fly around and try to learn how to control it, but when it came time to crashing it, it wouldn't crash. So you can't go to your investors and say, I know 8 days ago you gave me a $90,000 drone, but I have ruined it. And I understand this is the 5th drone you've given me, but do you think, could you give me one more? Because I'm getting much more confident. I don't think I'm going to crash this one. You can't do that with an $80,000 product. So I wanted to create a device that could hold the drone where they could mess around with it, but when it came time to crashing, the device would grab it and not let that happen. And so here it's tilted to the right, and here it's tilted to the left, and here it's tilted forward, and here it's tilted backward. And I wanted to demonstrate and discuss this structure because I can see people saying, duh, how are you going to do that exactly? This thing weighs 3,000 pounds. And so this, again, now we're backing out. We're in this 20 megabyte image. And here is, okay, so I said, okay, what I've found sometimes with scientific stuff, you got to be very careful to start out with the big picture and stay connected or people get lost. So all I did was remove the drones to generate a more easy understanding. See, this is like a little bit of leftover of the drone, of this device that's holding these. And again, this is a 20 megabyte picture. So what we would do is go over, here goes the icon again, and we're going to hit pause, okay, and go get, all right, so here we go again. We're in the renders. We go down to heavy lift drone stuff. And here is this as a 200 megabyte rendering. Okay, this was, let's see what this is. That's 170. That's 159. That's 202. So if you double click on this, you can see that this there. See how my computer finally, that's what happens with these big files, but it finally got this clear enough that you can see it and show people how it works and demonstrate the way that it has the strength to hold up this drone. Like here's straight up, tilt to the left, tilt to the right. And the reason that you can zoom in on it like this and explain to them exactly how this drone is, this thing is going to be held up by this joint, is because you switched over to a 200 megabyte file. Now we'll get back out of it. All right, so now we're going to look at the process that lets you bring an image into this file that you're building. All right, so we're going to show you how to bring a two-dimensional image into a 3D drawing program. And I'm explaining this to you with SketchUp, but I think this process is going to be almost exactly the same for any 3D drawing program. So the first thing we'll do here, we have one already, but let's create a brand new 3D drawing file that has nothing in it. So there it is. There's the horizon, here are your axes, and there's nothing there. And we're going to go out and get an image and bring it in. And the way that we bring an image in is there's a command import, so we're going to choose to import, and that tells the 3D drawing program that you're going to import. And we're looking at the computer. Here are the supported types of files that you can import. And we'll look for one of our images just to pick one. Let's take a look at this and see what it shows us. All right, we'll go back up one. Okay, there's the foot, or the drawing of the robot's feet that's been rendered. So we'll touch it and we'll import it. And there it is. Now, it places it, and then you can move the arrow or the cursor around to adjust the size of it, and you can see that it has made a guess of where it wants to put it in this blank space. And so that is one way you can do it. And now the picture's there. There it is. Okay. And you can move it around this way and that way. You can move it up and down. You can actually scale it if you want to, if you don't like the size of it. And it is, in fact, since it's an image, it's 100% two-dimensional. It has no thickness to it. So now let's take a look at a different way to approach this. And what we'll do is we'll have those templates in place that I had showed you before. And so that we'll have to open up this one. You don't want to change that. And so the first thing we'll do is we'll remove all the guides, and we'll take all of these images and we'll delete them. And we'll delete that. So now we have our 3D drawing space, and we'll get this out of the way of those axes. And you can see that we have this template that we've made, and it's a group. So whatever, as long as you don't get inside that group, whatever you do is not going to interfere with this. But again, in SketchUp, okay, if you double click, you get your horizontal lines, and that's why I built it this way. And so you can do that. And then you can make your vertical lines. And all we're doing here is building for ourselves a reference grid that's easy to remove, because these are guidelines. Okay, and so you have these guidelines here, and then if you want to go get an image, you can file and import and choose that image. And the program will tend to have the opinion that you want your image on these junction points. And then it pre-places it, and it lets you decide how big you want it to be. And so there it is. And so if you wanted to import another image, we'll go up one and we'll look at the chicken pics, and we'll look at these and decide which one we like. I think they're all the same. And import this, and we can see that this is on this line, so we might want to put this, but this extends over a little bit, so maybe we'll put this here, and then we'll allow it to grow. And there it is, and it is a bordered with blue, so it means you can move it. So this probably should have been there. Okay, and so you can see that we're building a set of images, and then if we wanted to, we can delete all the guides, and then we can delete this or hide it. Let's erase it. And so now you have these images sitting in space. And that's it. That's all there is to it. There's no big deal to this. And they, you know, these are, I think this was 20 megabytes. They're big images. And it's important to try if there's any way you can, because the appeal of this way of doing your introduction to your movie is that you can back all the way out for the big picture and run yourself all the way back in for the little picture. Now you'll notice as we start to get close to this, it doesn't really zoom in well. And this is something we've already talked about, but it needs to be where you can get close enough to it that you can make your introduction. All right. All right, so we have the two images, and this is very easily looked at. One thing I will tell you that I've discovered is, in terms of you showing this to your audience, this horizon gets a little irritating after a while. And if you take these images, and this you need to do at the very end when you're completely done, and tilt it down by about 12 degrees, then when you have yourself looking flat onto it, it gets it up here away from the horizon. It's just something to remember. So now we can go back to one of our other images, one of our slides. I call them slides. And this has a bunch of pictures in it. Now, I'm going to put the Camtasia on pause. All right, and we just came off of pause. It actually took 5 minutes for this to load. That's one of the advantages. See, this is also tilted at 12 degrees so that it tends to get it away from the horizon. There's a thing in the geometric world of the drawing 3D programs. It's called the bounding box. And the bounding box is a cube that contains all of these objects. And the math of the 3D program has to figure out where all these objects are in that three-dimensional space, so that when you change your look, the way that your camera is, it can recalculate where everything's supposed to be. And I don't know that this is true for sure. I saw it on the internet that the geometric calculation program for 3D drawings, the math of that requires that all of the calculations are done by one processor. So even if you have 12 processors in your computer, they are not able to help the computer when it's doing 3D drawing programs. And what happens is, okay, so say I think, again, I've said before, the main advantage, the main appeal, the way that this is cool, in my opinion, is that you can wander around here and make some point like this is, well, let's see, it's not big enough to be clear, but I think this is showing 500 pounds of weight of water. So you talk about this, and then you can jump out here and run down here to this jet engine and turn it a little bit. This is all the appeal of it. But every time you go in and out like this, the computer has to recalculate the bounding box, and it has to do the math. And if you get enough pictures in here, it will begin to be that it can't calculate fast enough to keep up with you, and your program will begin to bog down. And this becomes particularly true if you've filled these images up with very high quality images. But you do want it where if you get really close to it, it's pretty. Again, that's the appeal of it, is that you can back away, and then you can come in and you can show the jet engine in there and the little legs, you know, whatever you want. And here's a little guy standing here to get a feeling of size, and You know, you can say it is on the ground and it took off and it's flying away and it's folded up its little legs. All of this is doable because these images have enough density to them, enough size to them, that they can withstand you backing in and out on them. And what happens is you want your images to have that level of size and detail and resolution, but you're going to get into a place where if you keep adding more and more and more images, your computer is not going to be able to handle and you're going to not be able to have that way to present it where it's pretty and or exciting or cool, or you're doing this kind of stuff and people are like, oh, that was neat. And, or, oh, I see the whole picture now, and now he's going to go down here and talk about, you know, the numbers, the thickness and the diameter of the propeller. So, what I discovered that you can do if you want, if you have to, is you can truncate these, and instead of having one giant slide, you can have 4 or 5 slides that are a little bit smaller. And because Camtasia has this pause option, you can, you know, do one image like this of all of your images. I mean, one view of all of your images, but don't move it around very much to let people see your entire lecture. And then you can put see here, there goes the cursor, it's going over to pause. You can put Camtasia on pause and go get a smaller version of your set of images, and that'll let you move around inside of them. And I'll show you that here. And just for your reference, we've been looking at this one, number 6, and it's 293 megabytes. And it's getting right at the edge of what the 3D drawing program can move around in easily. All right, and so we can look at this. These are where I was working on it, but here are the slides, and I put this A up here. That makes them show at the top of the list. But there's slide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll look at one of these slides. Okay, you can see how many images are in this one, and how many images are in this one, and how many images are in this one. And so this is an actual real teaching or lecture video that I really did make. And if you tried to take this plus this plus this plus this plus this would get, it's completely unworkable. And so because of that, I split it up. But you could, let's open this one, and I'll tell it to open it. And again, I'm going to go out to put Camtasia on pause. So there goes the cursor. Okay, and it has opened it. And this is the magic of Camtasia, because to your audience, it seems like I said, we'll open this, and then boom, it's open. But actually it took 5 minutes. And we will see, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20. Has like 24 images in it. But you can scroll around inside of it, and that looks pretty good. That's not bad from a resolution viewpoint. And it's just some views of the jet. Here's the real jet engine, or a picture of the jet engine, and here is the 3D drawing equivalent that I made of it. Mostly because this, to me, is a persuasion argument. I'm saying this can be done, and people are going to say, it cannot be done. And I'm like, well, here's the engine. There it is. And there is the drone with the engine inside of it. So there. But the point that I'm making with respect to your introduction is this can be swung around, and you can do all of the cool stuff with it for your introduction because it's small enough that it won't bind up your drawing program. And what you would have to do if you wanted to show you your entire lecture, you would open slide 1, talk for 40 seconds, close it, put Camtasia on pause, open slide 2, talk about it. And so by going from slide 1 to slide 7, using the pause feature of Camtasia, you can do a 2 or 3 minute run through of your lecture using high quality images that are large, so that you can do the thing that's fun, which is to go in, see, that doesn't look bad at all, and go back out again. And nobody would know that, you know, it was 5 or 6 minutes between each slide to load up all those pictures. And now, you know, other might make the statement, no, I want to put this one up here, run through it for 20 seconds, and then spend 20 minutes discussing this slide. And when I'm done, I'll go open slide. Let's go open slide 2. So here goes the cursor. We're going to pause it. So we're showing slide 1, and we're going to open. Here's slide 2. So that's what that was. That's a lot of pictures there. So we're going to go ahead and click on slide 2 and click open, and then there goes the cursor. Okay, and we're back. And I mean, I guess to you, it looks like we were gone for 2 seconds, but it took 6 minutes to load this. And again, this is another one where we can go in here to plenty of detail to read everything we want to read. And it is still behaving as though it was a three-dimensional and the cool thing about the three-dimensional programs is you can actually put a three-dimensional structure in there. What did I do? I think I did this to show how this propeller was created as a three-dimensional structure. And this guy or girl is 6 feet tall, and I just wanted you to see how big is the propeller. But that's an actual 3D drawing file, and these are image files. And so this would be slide 2. And we can swing around, and we can do all this cool stuff that's a lot of fun that makes people pay attention to your presentation and say, man, I can't wait to listen to this lecture. Now, another thing, I can see people easily saying, gosh, this is so much detail. And the reason I'm doing this is you might say, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make one of these and put it in front of my video, and it's going to be cool, and people are going to like it, and it's going to add appeal. And so you try it and it won't work. And you're like, because I don't know, I certainly have seen people show me things, and I've seen stuff on the internet where it certainly looks easy when that other person is doing it. And then you try to do it and nothing works. And so I'm trying to explain to you some of the issues. And the main issue is you want your images detailed enough that it's pretty, that you can really show people stuff. But as you start stacking up all these images of this great size, you're going to get your computer program where it won't work. And it's because you put too many images in there. And I would not say, well, just make them less resolution. But then when you go zooming in on them, they're junk. And you shouldn't do that. See how these are starting to fall apart? And so that's why I'm showing you this method of making a set of slides. And that will give you the ability, particularly with Camtasia, because you can pause while you load and unload these things, and you're just zipping through it. And that's why I'm doing this. All right. And we're getting near, I guess, to the end of this discussion. This is slide 2, and all of these are images other than these three-dimensional files. This three-dimensional file can be exported from SketchUp as a SketchUp exported file. So you can make a 2D image from this if you wanted, but almost all of these are images. And if you're say like again, this is my specific example. You're talking about a drone and people are listening, and you want them to understand, you want them to be entertained, but there might be people who say, well, we should build that drone, or that drone has interesting specifications. We should go to our investors and get them to pay us to build one. And that kind of presentation requires a significant increase in the level of detail. And so if you have something that I said, okay, and you're going to go to the money people and ask for money to do it, or you have scientists who really are interested and cannot be sure you're right because they never checked your work, one thing you can do to help this is to take all of these images and collect them together and send them to Adobe Acrobat, or send them to Adobe, and have Adobe put together a giant PDF file that has all of these images in it. And then you can, when you're at the beginning of your lecture, say, you know, all of these images I'm showing you in this quick zoom run through of my whole lecture, all of these images exist in a PDF file, and you can put that PDF file in your G drive or put it on the cloud, or if you have a web page, you can upload that PDF file to your web page and make it available for download. So I have heavy lift drone PDF files, and here are the various slides. So here is this, I think is slide 2. Yeah, slide 2. So here is all of slide 2. So, okay, so here is slide 2. Here are all the images in slide 2 as PDF files. So if somebody was listening to my lecture, again, the point I was making, they're listening to my lecture and they're like, I really want to I want to see this myself on my own computer. I actually could want to send it to the printer and print it. Then there is that PDF file. And there they are. And so that's something that you can do as a favor to people. And you can send it, I guess, send it to your G drive and make it available, or send it to the cloud, or if you have a website that you run, you can upload that PDF file to your website and make it available for download. I do create YouTube videos. YouTube allows me to send my videos to YouTube, and I sort of just work on whatever's on my mind at the time. I have a presentation about this drone, and I have 2 YouTube videos on this drone that have used this technique of having this slideshow at the front of the YouTube video. So, you know, spoiler alert, it is scientific, and it is me talking about drones. So if those topics have no interest to you, then don't watch the video. But if you're curious to see how this works in a real video with a real lecture presentation, you can look at those. So you can see here, this is my listing of the YouTube videos I've made. Here is the heavy lift drone power management. I can get a link. And here is the other one, heavy lift drone power management part 1, heavy lift drone power management part 2. And up here is the YouTube URL for my heavy lift drone power management part 2, and you can see it started right here, and we've started out by using this presentation format. So power management part 2. And here is my heavy lift drone power management part 1. And it starts out with these slides. So, and that's the URL for it. So you can actually watch these in action if you want to. And you can see at this point we're showing you this set of slides, and I made a PowerPoint, a SketchUp based YouTube video about whether there's enough power at all for the drone to get off the ground. But another thing that needs to be discussed is how to control the power that you have in the drone so that the drone can make controlled flight. And so that's my third, or I guess fourth, YouTube video that I'm going to make on that topic. And as an example, here is a SketchUp drawing I made that shows a fuselage of the drone with the jet engine in there and the pumps, and the jet engine is running the pumps, and beneath that is a manifold so there's 6 propellers, so you have 6 separate valves that this is the output valve, and this is the return or supply valve to the motor, and the return valve from the motor, showing, and here is an electric linear actuator using a ball nut ball screw system to control the positioning of the valves. And the point that this is all pretty detailed information about the drone, but the point that I'm making here is that if you're going to use this technique to create a set of images that you're going to use to introduce your lecture, you sort of need to get it straight in your head how your lecture is going to progress, and what is the beginning of your lecture, what is the first part, the second part, the third part. Then you have to look at the material that you have and decide what images would be the right images for your lecture, and then you have to line these images up, I think, in a sequential order based on time to create your presentation of images. Because if you put it together and start your lecture and say, oh, I really should have mentioned this, and you start mentioning it and it's not in your slides, it's going to mix people up. And in addition to that, if you're talking about it and this is the manifold that controls the valves that allow the flow or the speed of rotation of the propellers to be adjusted, and you're like, nah, I don't think I should cover that first. I think I should cover that towards the end. And what happens is all of your slides are not in the right order anymore, or all of your images. So I guess the point I'm making, if you make the decision that you're going to use this technique to create a teaser or a trailer or something to make your YouTube video fun and engaging and to get people to watch it, you probably need to get it pretty straight in your head what your big main lecture is going to be like. and create your slides first so that everything lines up like it's supposed to. Otherwise, I think you're going to get people mixed up. So anyway, I appreciate that you were watching this and learning, and I think it's something easy to do, and you will enjoy it. Thanks again.